Welcome back. Tonight, we're drifting slowly into the complete timeline of Little Nightmares. The endless cycle of awakenings and distortions that unfolds in the nowhere. A world shaped by signals and shadows, where small figures navigate vast horrors born from humanity's deepest fears. Awakened in foggy forests or underwater vessels, children like Mono and Six face pursuits that twist bodies and minds. From hunter cabins to signal towers where broadcasts erode reality, leading to betrayals that echo through wastelands and floating vessels. But these paths reveal a chain of quiet transformations where hunger propagates not through simple decay, but through an unyielding loop of power absorbed and alliances fractured, reshaping the young into guardians of their own nightmare song. From the pale city's warped streets where a boy uncovers his fate, to the maw's swaying decks where feasts conceal grim harvests, to the necropolis sands where mirrors promise escape yet hold solitude. We'll trace every quiet step of this nightmare timeline in sequence. This is the story of how isolated visions became a web of interconnected fates, and how the Nowhere's pull ensures no awakening ends without leaving its mark. Whether you're uncovering these layers for the first time, letting familiar echoes guide you deeper into rest, or simply allowing the tale to unfold like a soft mist as sleep draws near, this will carry you through the full, unbroken history of Little Nightmares. Before we begin, feel free to like and subscribe, but only if you enjoy this kind of slow, immersive storytelling that unwinds like a dream. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's always a quiet wonder to see the same timeline weaving through different corners of the world, one hushed night at a time. Let's begin. A long corridor stretches in a distorted vision, its walls bending under an unseen force until a door appears at the end, etched with an eye symbol that pulses with quiet menace. From this image, Mono emerges through a television screen, the static fading as he awakens in a foggy forest clearing. The air hangs thick with mist, muffling the sounds of distant branches cracking underfoot. As Mono stands, the weight of the vision lingers, drawing him forward into the wilderness where hidden dangers wait. This initial disorientation sets the path for his journey, pulling him from one realm into another, where survival depends on careful steps. The eye symbol, a recurring mark in this world, hints at a watchful presence that shapes events, leading Mono deeper into the unknown with each cautious movement. The forest floor conceals bear traps and fallen logs, placed by an unseen hunter whose presence echoes in the rustle of leaves and the snap of branches. Mono navigates these hazards methodically, the mist cloaking his small form as he leaps over pitfalls that could end his progress abruptly. Each trap avoided reveals the hunter's intent to guard this territory, turning the woods into a testing ground where inattention brings swift consequences. As he presses on, the environment's heaviness presses in, the fog limiting sight and heightening every sound. This traversal builds Mono's resolve, forging a quiet determination amid the isolation, while the unseen threats underscore the world's hostility toward the vulnerable. The distant crack of a shotgun reinforces the peril, guiding Mono toward shelter without revealing the full scope of what pursues him. Deeper in the woods, a secluded cabin emerges from the haze, its structure weathered by time and neglect. Inside, faint music drifts from below, leading Mono to a basement door secured by wooden planks. He breaks through with an axe found nearby, the effort revealing a girl without her yellow raincoat, absorbed in turning the crank of a music box that emits a familiar, soothing tune. This encounter disrupts her solitude, causing her to glance up warily before bolting upstairs in fear, prompting Mono to follow her path. The music box, a simple object of comfort, becomes a bridge between them, its melody contrasting the silence outside. As they eventually align their actions, this meeting initiates a partnership born from necessity, altering their paths in a world where alliances form against encroaching shadows. Mono edges toward the cabin's dim light, its wooden frame creaking softly against the forest's hush, a refuge amid the encroaching fog. The structure, weathered and isolated, holds signs of recent habitation, scattered tools and faint echoes of movement within. As he slips inside, the air thickens with the scent of damp wood and something metallic, guiding him downward to a basement where a locked door bars entry. With an axe gripped firmly, Mono strikes the planks, each blow splintering the barrier and revealing the girl inside, her hands turning the crank of a music box that fills the space with a gentle, repetitive melody. This act of breaking through disrupts her isolation, causing her to bolt upward in fear, the music box left behind as she seeks escape. The cabin's confines force a moment of recognition where intrusion leads to flight, setting the stage for uneasy trust in a world of hidden threats. Upstairs, the girl ascends toward the attic, her quick steps echoing on the stairs as Mono follows. The hunter's domain revealing cluttered rooms filled with trophies and shadowed corners. They encounter a lever that demands combined effort, her pull complementing his, which opens a hatch to higher levels but alerts the cabin's owner with a resounding thud. The hunter, a hulking figure armed with a shotgun, stirs from his work, his heavy boots pounding as he begins the pursuit, flashlight beams slicing through the gloom. This noise, born from their cooperation, escalates the danger, transforming the house from a potential haven into a trap where every creak betrays position. As they evade his grasp, weaving through furniture and narrow gaps, the partnership solidifies through shared peril, each narrow miss reinforcing the need for alliance against the immediate threat outside. The chase spills into the swamps beyond the cabin, the hunter's shotgun blasts cracking the night air, forcing Mono and the girl, 6, to wade through murky waters and hide in reeds. They reach a shed where a spare gun rests on the wall, its weight requiring both to lift and fire, the recoil ending the hunter's advance with a final echoing shot. This confrontation, triggered by their escape, clears the path across a misty lake on a makeshift raft, the water's calm surface belying the violence left behind. As they drift, 6's troubled gaze lingers on the horizon, the act of defense weighing on her while the cabin fades into memory. The alliance forged in necessity carries them forward, the hunter's fall opening the way to new horizons amid the fading echoes of pursuit. Mono and 6 drift on a makeshift door serving as a raft, the misty lake carrying them away from the hunter's domain toward an unfamiliar shore. The water laps gently against the wood, the fog parting to reveal the outline of the pale city, its buildings leaning inward as if drawn by an invisible pull from a central tower. This signal tower, a looming structure at the city's heart, emits a low hum that vibrates through the air, distorting the skyline and hinting at its influence over the surroundings. As they wash ashore, the sand shifts underfoot, leading them into streets lined with crumbling facades where silence reigns, broken only by distant echoes. The arrival marks a shift from isolated pursuit to urban desolation, where the tower's presence causes structures to bend, guiding the pair deeper into a place shaped by unseen forces. With each step onto solid ground, the hum grows faintly stronger, pulling them toward answers amid the ruins. In an abandoned apartment, Mono approaches a flickering television set, its screen broadcasting a warped signal that draws him closer. He places his hand on the glass, the image bending to form a long hallway from his earlier vision, the pull intensifying as he steps into the distorted space. Six intervenes, grasping his arm and yanking him back to reality, the action calming the broadcast's hazardous hum for a moment. This interaction reveals Mono's unique connection to the televisions, allowing entry but risking entrapment, while Six's quick response prevents full immersion. The apartment holds remnants of vanished lives, empty clothes scattered as if their owners dissolved mid-motion, a direct result of the signal's draw. As they move on, the brief calm fades, leaving the city's quiet oppression to settle in, where signals manipulate both minds and matter. They press into more deserted buildings, the pale city's warped architecture curving toward the signal tower, like branches reaching for light. Clothes hang from broken fixtures, their presence suggesting inhabitants were pulled away suddenly, leaving behind hollow echoes of daily routines. Mono and Six navigate these spaces carefully. The towers hum a constant undercurrent that warps walls and floors, making each crossing a test of balance. This exploration uncovers the broadcast's role in emptying the city, as signals lure and consume, erasing people while preserving their traces. The pair's bond holds steady amid the desolation, their shared steps forward a quiet defiance against the tower's isolating pull. As shadows lengthen, the hum persists, drawing them nearer to the heart of the distortion. Mono and Six approach the pale city's ominous school building, its facade cracked and leaning slightly toward the distant signal tower, the rain-slicked streets leading them into a place of faded order. Inside, the halls echo with faint scuffles as porcelain bullies, small figures with fragile doll-like heads, emerge from shadows, their movements jerky and aggressive. These students, warped by the tower's influence, ambush the pair, overwhelming Six and dragging her away to string her up by her ankles in a distant room. Mono, left alone, picks up a nearby hammer, its weight familiar as he swings it to shatter the bullies' heads, the cracks spreading like fragile pottery under impact. The separation forces Mono to navigate the corridors solo, each bully's defeat clearing a path but alerting more, turning the school into a labyrinth where isolation breeds urgency. As he advances, the encounter underscores the tower's corruption, twisting education into hostility and compelling Mono to rescue his companion amid growing threats. Classrooms line the dim halls where the teacher presides over lessons, scrolled on chalkboards depicting eye symbols and sketches of the signal tower itself, the broadcast's indoctrination evident in every line. Her neck extends unnaturally, snaking around corners to scan for intruders, the elongation a direct result of the tower's distorting signal on her form. Mono ducks into libraries filled with toppled books and science labs cluttered with forgotten experiments, using stealth to evade her gaze while solving puzzles to progress. Each evasion buys time, but her persistent patrols heighten the tension, her ruler tapping surfaces as a warning. This oversight reveals the school's role in perpetuating the city's trance, where knowledge serves the tower's agenda, molding minds into obedience. Mono's careful maneuvers through these spaces build his resourcefulness, the teacher's presence a constant reminder of how the signal reshapes guardians into predators. Reuniting with Six in a fallen locker room, Mono frees her from the bully's ropes, the act reinforcing their alliance as they escape together. Her gratitude subtle in their continued coordination. Yet upon encountering another bully, Six's response turns deliberate. She crushes its head underfoot with focused intensity, the action stemming from her recent captivity and hinting at a simmering darkness within. This shift alters their dynamic slightly, her demeanor carrying a new edge as they press onward through the school's vents. The rescue and its aftermath strengthen their bond through shared survival, but introduce a quiet undercurrent of change where trauma from the tower's world leaves lasting marks as they leave the halls behind, the experience lingering, preparing them for the Pale City's deeper distortions ahead. Mono and Six flee the teacher's unyielding gaze, her extended neck snapping back as they drop through a weakened floor in the school, the impact dislodging a grand piano that crashes down to block her path. The Pale City's rain begins to patter outside, soaking the streets as they emerge from the building's vents, the school's oppressive silence giving way to the steady downpour. This narrow escape, prompted by the teacher's rage at their intrusion, leaves the halls behind but carries the echo of her lessons, symbols of eyes and the signal tower etched in memory. As they step into the open, the city's distorted buildings loom closer, the towers hum a subtle guide pulling them forward amid the wet chill. The partnership holds firm, their coordinated evasion turning potential capture into continued freedom, softening the school's harsh grip as the rain washes away immediate traces of pursuit. On the slick pavement, Six spots a yellow raincoat draped over a railing, its fabric untouched by the city's decay, offering shelter from the relentless storm. She slips it on, the coat's familiar weight restoring a sense of protection as water beads off its surface, the action stemming from her exposure to the elements and providing immediate relief. Mono watches quietly, the garment marking a quiet transition in her presence amid the Pale City's gloom. This find amidst abandoned streets counters the school's hostility with a small comfort, allowing them to press on without the drag of sodden clothes. As they move, the raincoat becomes a quiet anchor, its bright hue standing against the gray, while the tower's influence bends nearby structures, urging them toward greater challenges ahead. They traverse a wide chasm on precarious beams, the Pale City's fissure a scar from the signal's warping force. Each step demands balance as wind tugs at their forms, the gap widened by the tower's pull tests their coordination, with Mono steadying Six across the divide. The effort, building from their school trials into seamless support, reveals the city's deeper instability, where the broadcast not only twists minds, but reshapes the ground itself, leading to isolated pockets of ruin. As they reach the other side, the experience reinforces their reliance on one another, the chasm's peril fading into memory while the tower's light grows nearer. The journey continues, the rain easing slightly, carrying them toward the hospital's shadowed entrance with quiet determination. Mono and Six enter the Pale City's hospital, its entrance shadowed by leaning facades where rain pools on cracked steps. The signal tower's hum faintly audible through the walls. Inside, dim corridors stretch with flickering lights, revealing scuttling prosthetic hands that detach from mannequins and pursue intruders on spider-like fingers. These hands, remnants of the doctor's surgeries, grasp at ankles and force quick dodges, their movements a consequence of the broadcast's distortion on once human forms. Mono wields a hammer to crush them, the impacts echoing as Six assists in pulling levers to access locked wards. This initial navigation exposes the hospital's purpose, a site where the signal reshapes bodies, turning patients into frozen mannequins that stir only in darkness. As they delve deeper, the ward's quiet oppression builds, each hand evaded highlighting the tower's role in severing life from flesh, leaving echoes that linger in the sterile air. Mannequin patients line the beds, their plastic forms rigid under flashlight beams that hold their shuffles, a reaction tied to memories of operating lights from the doctor's procedures. These figures, once city residents seeking masks to hide deformities, now inhabit artificial bodies after the doctor's surgeries reshape their forms. The glitching remains Mono collects, as echoes confirming the broadcast's lingering effect. Six and Mono coordinate to shine lights and navigate past them, the mannequins freezing, allowing passage through hallways cluttered with discarded limbs. This mechanic, born from the doctor's experiments, underscores the hospital's cycle of transformation, where vanity leads to loss of humanity and forms remain bound. As they progress, the collected remains mark Mono's journey, the ward's encounters weaving a thread of quiet survival amid the clinical decay, preparing them for the overseer's looming presence. The doctor descends from ceiling fixtures in his bloated overalls, his form a product of the signal's obesity-inducing warp as he crafts masks sold to conceal the city's afflictions. His pursuit through vents and rooms stems from detecting intruders in his domain, the hanging posture allowing surprise drops that force evasion. Mono and Six lure him into tight spaces, his size hindering chases while they solve puzzles involving fuses and doors. This confrontation reveals the mask's origin, linking to the residents' efforts and explaining the societal hiding of distortions. As escapes narrow, the doctor's role in perpetuating the Pale City's facade becomes clear, his work sustaining the broadcast's grip on appearances, the wards fading behind them, the experience leaving a subtle weight, carrying forward into the streets where greater distortions await. Mono and Six maneuver through the hospital's incinerator room, the doctor's heavy form descending from the ceiling in pursuit, his bloated silhouette a result of the signal tower's distorting influence on flesh. They lure him into the furnace chamber with deliberate movements, the space filled with the hum of machinery and the faint crackle of embers waiting below. As he crawls inside, drawn by their evasion, Six reaches the control lever without pause, her pull igniting the flames that engulf him in a steady roar. This decisive act, born from the need to end his chase, consumes the doctor completely, his experiments halted as heat reduces his presence to ash. The room's air grows warmer, the incinerator's glow casting long shadows that fade with his demise, allowing the pair to proceed unhindered. In this moment, the hospital's cycle of transformation breaks. The tower's hold on one overseer severed, opening a path to the streets where the broadcast's effects persist in subtler forms. Before leaving, they pass through wards lined with electric chairs, devices the doctor used to power his surgeries or restrain patients, the process leaving glitch remnants scattered within the signal's range. Mono collects these flickering echoes, their presence marking him as a faint warmth spreads through his form, a direct outcome of the broadcast's lingering effect on captured lives. Six observes quietly, the chair's straps and drawings of hypnotic eyes revealing how patients stared into broadcasts, their humanity stripped to feed the tower's illusions. This navigation uncovers the mechanics of the Pale City's decay, where echoes linger as digital ghosts unable to escape the signal's grasp. As they move on, the collected remnants linger as a quiet marker, the hospital's remains a testament to how the tower sustains itself through drained lives, guiding the pair toward the city's core with continued resilience. Exiting into the rain-soaked streets, Mono and Six witness viewers atop buildings, their forms leaping silently as the signal drains life force, bodies hitting the pavement below without cries. This phenomenon, caused by the tower's calming broadcast eroding wills, leaves clothes scattered like shed skins, the distortions pulling faces into withered masks. The pair presses forward amid the falls, the scenes a consequence of endless trance that empties the city, turning fixation into oblivion. As they distance themselves from the hospital, the tower's light pulses nearer, the viewer's fates a quiet warning of the signal's consuming reach. The journey continues, the pale city's desolation deepening, carrying them toward confrontations where alliances face greater tests. Mono and Six tread the pale city's rain-drenched streets, where viewers cluster in dim apartments, their eyes locked on glowing television screens broadcasting endless static. These inhabitants, once ordinary residents, now sit transfixed. The signal tower's hum eroding their faces into withered hollows as it saps their will. The broadcast's calming pull causes them to lean forward, bodies distorting over time until they wither completely, leaving empty clothes draped over chairs like forgotten husks. As the pair slips past, a viewer's desperate reach interrupts their path, the encounter a direct result of the signal's addictive hold, turning passive fixation into fleeting aggression. This scene exposes the tower's method of consumption, draining life force to fuel its distortions while preserving the city's eerie quiet. With careful steps, Mono and Six avoid the groups, the trance's grip a silent barrier that shapes their route toward the tower's core, where the signal's influence deepens. In a dilapidated building, Mono encounters another television pulsing with the broadcast, its screen drawing him in as he touches the glass, bending the image into the familiar hallway once more. The pull intensifies, allowing him brief progress toward the distant door before Six grasps his arm, pulling him back and quieting the signal's haze. This repeated intervention stems from her awareness of the danger, preventing full immersion that could trap him within the tower's dimension. The room holds traces of vanished lives, scattered clothes and toppled furniture warped toward the screen, outcomes of the broadcast's erasure. As they continue, the event highlights Mono's unique affinity for the signals, a trait that invites risk but offers glimpses of hidden truths. The pale city streets reclaim them, the tower's light a constant beacon, weaving their path through neighborhoods where the trance claims more forms in quiet succession. Viewers perch on rooftops, their silhouettes leaning as the signal compels them to edge closer, some tumbling silently to the streets below without resistance. This compulsion, driven by the tower's soothing frequency, empties the city further, bodies hitting pavement as life force feeds the broadcast's endless cycle. Mono and Six witness the falls, the impacts muffled by rain, each one a consequence of prolonged exposure that hollows minds before claiming flesh. Amid the descent, the pair presses on, the scenes a quiet testament to the tower's dominion over the pale city. As shadows gather, the tower's hum persists, guiding them nearer to revelations where alliances face the signal's unyielding grasp. Mono ventures alone through the pale city's rain-lashed streets, the signal tower's hum a constant undercurrent as hordes of viewers stir from their trances, their withered faces turning toward him with sudden aggression. These inhabitants, roused by interruptions to their broadcasts, shuffle in packs, their eroded forms a result of prolonged exposure to the signal that hollows both body and mind. He evades them by slipping into shadowed alleys and climbing precarious ledges, each dodge prompting the viewers to scatter briefly before regrouping, their pursuit driven by the tower's influence that turns passive fixation into collective hostility. This isolation, stemming from Six's abduction, forces Mono to rely on quick wits amid the downpour, the city's warped buildings providing fleeting cover. As he presses on, the encounters reveal the broadcast's role in unifying the lost, where individual trances merge into mob-like chases, deepening the desolation. The streets stretch onward, the tower's light pulsing nearer, carrying Mono toward echoes of his companion. In the gloom, a glitching remnant of Six appears intermittently, its flickering form guiding Mono through flooded avenues and crumbling facades. The echo, a leftover from the Thin Man's capture that lingers due to the signal's trapping effect, leads him to confrontations where the Thin Man materializes, his tall silhouette emerging from static haze to slow time and bend reality like a television signal warping. Mono hides in alcoves and under debris, the Thin Man's approach causing the air to thicken, each evasion buying moments to advance. The pursuit, initiated by the abduction, uncovers the Thin Man's method of claiming victims, leaving echoes as distorted remnants while forms warp under the tower's influence. As Mono follows the remnant, the guidance strengthens his resolve, the city's distortions mirroring the entity's power. The rain continues unabated, the glitching path a quiet thread pulling him closer to the tower's base. Amid escalating threats in the slick streets outside the signal tower, the Thin Man closes in, his presence halting time as Mono removes his paper bag, unleashing a swell of energy that counters the distortion with equal force. This revelation, triggered by desperation, allows Mono to clash directly, bending the surroundings to push back the entity until it fades into rest. The victory, a result of Mono's latent abilities mirroring the Thin Man's, warps the cityscape briefly, opening a direct path to the tower's welcoming doors. As the confrontation ends, the experience affirms Mono's connection to the signals, where inherent powers rise against their source. The tower stands open, its entrance a threshold to deeper mysteries, the rain easing as the pale city's core awaits. Mono steps through the signal tower's open doors, the threshold leading to a dimension where gravity holds inconsistently, objects drifting upward while his feet remain grounded on shifting floors. The air shimmers with a pinkish-purple haze, doorways multiplying into endless loops that guide him upward through stairwells without clear end. This interior, a realm unto itself, warps under the tower's influence, pulling from memories to create illusions that mask its true nature. As Mono ascends, a familiar melody echoes faintly. The tune from Six's music box, its notes drawing him like a thread through the haze. The tower's design, born from the broadcast's consuming power, traps wanderers in repetitive paths, each doorway a test of persistence that erodes resolve over time amid the floating debris and hazy glow. Mono's quiet determination carries him forward, the melody growing clearer, leading to a room filled with oversized toys where the source awaits. In this chamber, Six appears transformed, her body elongated and twisted into a hulking form that guards the music box with protective fervor, the object's crank turning as she huddles over it. Mono realizes the box binds her to this state, its melody soothing yet controlling, a hold strengthened by the tower's distortion of her form. After the Thin Man's capture, he seizes an axe from nearby, striking the box when Six turns away, the impact sending ripples that plunge him briefly into darkness before returning him to the chase. This cycle, triggered by each blow, weakens her gradually, her rage mounting as the tower's illusions falter. The transformation, a result of the signal's corruption altering her body, turns ally into adversary, forcing Mono to evade her grasps in the confined space. As strikes accumulate, the room's stability erodes, the music box's role in her imprisonment clear, guiding Mono toward restoration. Amid the escalating tension, the tower's facade crumbles with each hammer fall, walls shifting from plaster to pulsing flesh embedded with eyes and organs that watch the pursuit unfold. 6, driven by fury, charges through hallways that twist and reform, her distorted limbs smashing barriers as Mono darts into voids, locating axes to break back into the fray. This revelation of the tower's organic core, a mass warped by the broadcast's power, exposes its predatory essence, where signals distort and reshape forms to expand its reach. The chase, intensified by the collapsing structure, leads to the music box's final destruction, the act severing the tower's grip and returning 6 to her original form. As flesh eyes converge, the dimensions unraveling propels them toward escape. The tower's true nature, a quiet culmination of the city's distortions, the haze thickening, the pair's flight a measured push against the encroaching mass. Mono and 6 race through the signal tower's crumbling halls, the fleshy walls pulsing as eyes converge from the shadows, the structure's true form exposed by the music box's destruction. 6 leads the way, her steps quick on the shifting floors, reaching the static-filled exit portal first as the tower's mass presses in. Mono stumbles on uneven ground, the collapse widening a gap in the bridge, causing him to hang precariously while calling for her aid. She doubles back, grasping his hand firmly, the moment born from their shared trials in the Pale City. Yet she releases him seconds later, letting him plummet into the abyss below. This betrayal, with ambiguous motives possibly tied to her experiences in the tower, severs their alliance abruptly, leaving Mono to the tower's depths. As she vanishes through the portal, the tower stabilizes around his fall, the act echoing her survival instincts honed in the hunter's cabin and school. The haze clears slightly, the descent a quiet descent into isolation amid the organic echoes. In the tower's fleshy core, Mono lands among writhing organs and watchful eyes, the impact jarring but survivable as the structure reforms its illusions around him. Alone now, he sits in a conjured chair, the tower channeling his abilities to broadcast outward, the process accelerating his aging over untold years. His form elongates, features hollowing into the thin man's silhouette, a transformation caused by the signal's corruption that twists his latent powers for its cycle. This loop, initiated by the drop, traps him eternally, his broadcasts draining the Pale City's life force and bending its inhabitants, perpetuating the distortions seen in viewers and monsters alike. As decades pass in solitude, resentment builds, the tower's grip turning innocence into the entity he once vanquished. The chamber's purple glow dims, the change a silent culmination of betrayal's weight, binding him to the very force he sought to defy. 6 emerges through a television screen outside the tower, her form glitching faintly as traces from the signal unsettle her body. The exit, a result of escaping the dimension without him. This glitched state creates a void within, manifesting as an unquenchable hunger that mirrors her later feast on the maw, the effect a permanent scar from the tower's realm. She warps to the maw's vicinity, the transition leaving her burdened, her moral compass eroded by the Pale City's trials in this final act. As the screen fades to static, the experience propels her toward the vessel's depths, the betrayal's consequences rippling into her solitary path. The rain continues softly, the city quiet in her wake, carrying echoes of fractured trust. 6 awakens inside a suitcase on the maw, the massive underwater vessel swaying gently with the ocean's currents, its metallic groans echoing through the dim confines. The air carries a chill dampness, mingled with faint scents of rust and salt, as she emerges from her hiding spot, the bright yellow of her raincoat standing out against the shadowed vents and chains that dominate the space. This arrival, following her glitched escape from the signal tower, leaves her with a lingering void, an insatiable hunger that emerges after her experiences there, which now gnaws at her edges. As she navigates the initial corridors, a vision of a geisha-like lady flickers in her mind, the image dissipating like mist, but planting a seed of foreboding. The maw's design, built for larger inhabitants, forces her to climb oversized fixtures and squeeze through grates, each movement a reminder of her smallness in this predatory world. With quiet steps, she presses onward, the vessel's tilt a constant companion, drawing her into depths where alliances dissolve and survival demands cunning. Skittish gnomes dart from her path in the early passages, their small gnome-like forms observing from corners or fleeing into cracks. The encounter's brief but laced with potential warmth, as she could choose to hug them if close enough. These creatures, harmless and elusive, scatter across the maw's lower levels, their presence a subtle thread tying the vessel's secrets together. Six's interactions with them stem from curiosity rather than necessity, the hugs offering fleeting comfort amid the isolation, though she often moves on without pursuit. As she traverses, the gnome's skittishness reflects the maw's atmosphere of fear, where even the smallest beings evade capture. This layer of the vessel, with its ventilation shafts and mechanical hums, builds her awareness of the larger society above, the gnome's quiet existence a counterpoint to the horrors unfolding, the journey deepening, the ocean's pressure outside mirroring the weight within, guiding her toward revelations in the prison below. A long stairway descends into wider chambers, the maw's structure revealing massive chains and industrial spaces that dwarf her, the side-to-side motion confirming its submerged voyage. Here, the environment's scale emphasizes her vulnerability, ladders and platforms requiring precise leaps to avoid falls into darkness. This progression, driven by her need to escape or understand her hunger, uncovers the vessel's purpose as a resort for the grotesque, where children like her become resources. As she advances, the initial vision of the lady lingers, its recurrence hinting at a connection that pulls her upward through the layers. The maw's quiet vastness settles in, the journey a measured unraveling of its secrets, carrying her toward encounters where hunger and shadows intertwine. Six descends into the maw's lower levels, the air growing heavier with moisture and the faint drip of water echoing off iron walls, the vessel's sway adding a rhythmic tilt to her steps. Carnivorous leeches slither across flooded floors, their black forms lunging from shadows to constrict and drain, forcing her to sprint and leap over infested pools. These creatures, infesting the depths, emerge from neglect in the prison's underbelly, turning simple traversal into a test of agility where a single misstep leads to suffocation. As she evades them, artificial eyes mounted on walls activate with beams that disintegrate on contact, their light turning exposed forms to ash scattered like warnings. The eyes, mechanisms of surveillance, enforce the maw's order by immobilizing intruders, their activation tied to motion that draws unwanted attention. Amid caged children huddled in dim cells, Six presses on, the prison's quiet despair settling in, each hazard navigated drawing her closer to the janitor's domain where larger threats await. Hunger grips Six suddenly, her small frame doubling over as a deep ache radiates from her stomach, the pain a recurring affliction amplified by the maw's draining environment. In a monitoring room, the janitor oversees beds via screens, his long arms poised over controls, but she slips past unnoticed, the setup revealing his role in guarding the young captives. This oversight, maintained through his blindness and acute hearing, ensures the children remain resources for the vessel's operations, their confinement a step in the Maw's grim cycle. A shadowed child behind bars extends a piece of bread, the offering sliding through the gaps as a quiet act of solidarity that quells her pang, allowing strength to return. The gesture, born from shared captivity, provides momentary relief, its acceptance staving off collapse and enabling her to continue upward. As the ache fades, the prison's halls loom larger, the encounter a brief light in the depths, carrying her toward cluttered spaces where evasion demands precision. The janitor emerges in his domain, his disproportionate arms groping blindly through the air, the fedora shadowing his bandaged face as he reacts to every sound with predatory intent. Six hides in alcoves and under carts, his pursuits triggered by her footsteps that echo unnaturally in the vast room, leading to tense chases where silence becomes her shield. This blindness, a flaw in his guardianship, allows her to distract him with tossed objects or distant noises, turning his strength into a vulnerability that opens paths forward as she navigates his cluttered quarters filled with dolls and remnants. The space reflects his obsessions, each evasion building from the last to secure her escape, the Maw's sway persisting below, the encounter's resolution clearing the way upward, the prison's grip loosening slightly as shadows lengthen in her wake. Six finds herself ensnared in a metal cage within the Maw's prison, the bait a sausage drawing her in during a moment of vulnerability as hunger clouds her judgment once more. The janitor, with his elongated arms and blindfolded gaze, had set the trap in his cluttered domain, his acute hearing detecting her faint steps amid the vessel's creaks. She rocks the cage side to side, the motion loosening its bars enough for her to slip free, though the effort leaves her breathless in the dim light. This escape, prompted by the janitor's routine patrols, allows her to continue upward, but she spares no glance for the other caged children nearby, their silent pleas ignored in favor of her own survival. The domain's air hangs heavy with dust and echoes, the janitor's obsession with order evident in stacked crates and forgotten toys that clutter the space. As she moves on, the narrow evasion reinforces the Maw's hierarchy, where guardians like him enforce captivity, turning the prison into a feeder for the levels above, the quiet aftermath settling like a veil over the forsaken. In a vast room piled high with discarded shoes, Six weaves through the heaps, the leather and fabric shifting underfoot as the janitor's arms stir beneath, his presence triggered by her disturbances in the mound. The janitor pursues from the edges, his long arms groping blindly but relentlessly, the chase intensifying as she darts toward a half-closed door propped by a small crate. She lures him closer with deliberate noise, the distraction causing him to thrust his limbs through the gap where she slams the door shut, severing his arms in a clean, irreversible cut. This confrontation, arising from his reliance on sound over sight, ends his immediate threat, the severed limbs twitching faintly on the floor as blood pools slowly. The shoe room's dim chaos fades behind her, the janitor's unrest quelled by her exit, leaving the space to its silent disarray. As the Maw sways gently, the victory clears her path, the janitor's downfall a quiet shift in the vessel's balance, opening routes to the mechanical ascent where darker processes unfold. Ascending on an automated hook line, Six rides among wrapped bundles that sway with the Maw's motion, the paper coverings concealing the forms of deceased children transported upward for processing. The mechanism, part of the vessel's grim logistics, carries these loads to the kitchens above. The sight of piled bodies in adjacent chambers, revealing the maw's cycle of consumption, where young lives fuel the feasts. This revelation, witnessed in the dim cargo holds, stems from the prison's role in harvesting captives, turning oversight into supply for the obese guests. As she dismounts, the quiet horror lingers, the hook's rhythmic clank a backdrop to her continued climb through vents and shafts, the maw's depths receding, the ascent a measured progression toward the upper decks, where the implications of these bundles weigh heavier in the salted air. Six climbs higher through the maw's mechanical shafts, the air growing warmer with the scent of grease and decay as another hunger pang strikes, her body crumpling forward in a wave of gnawing emptiness. This affliction, recurring since her escape from the Pale City, intensifies without warning. The void from absorbed power demanding sustenance that blurs her focus amid the vessel's sway. In the larder, a live rat struggles in a mousetrap nearby, its squeaks piercing the quiet as she approaches, the desperation overriding hesitation to seize and devour it raw. The act, driven by the hunger's unrelenting grip, restores her strength gradually, the maw's dim lights flickering as her heartbeat steadies. This consumption marks a deepening pattern where survival extracts from the living, turning vermin into fleeting relief in the vessel's underbelly. As she rises, the larder's stacked crates loom silent, the encounter a quiet pivot toward the kitchens above where the maw's operations unfold in fuller, grim detail. The kitchens sprawl with counters laden with chopped remains, the twin chefs laboring over pots and grinders, their grotesque forms a product of the maw's indulgent hierarchy that warps its servants. Six slips beneath tables and through vents, their knives slicing air as they prepare meals from the wrapped bundles ascending from below, the process revealing the children's fate as ingredients for the feasts. One chef pauses to wash utensils, the clatter masking her movements. But a misplaced step alerts them, triggering a pursuit through steam-filled rooms where evasion demands precise timing. This chase, stemming from her intrusion into their domain, exposes the maw's food chain, where the chef's diligence sustains the guest's gluttony at the cost of the young. As she ducks into narrow gaps, the kitchen's heat presses in, the twins' coordination, a barrier that tests her stealth, leading toward a small window overlooking the vessel's exterior. From the window, the maw's massive form sways in ocean currents, a ship docking nearby to unload obese guests who waddle aboard, their arrival tied to the vessel's role as an underwater resort feeding endless appetites. Six observes briefly, the sight confirming the bundle's purpose as she resumes her path, the chef's domain receding behind vents that carry her upward. This glimpse, prompted by her kitchen traversal, unveils the maw's cycle of arrival and consumption, where guests' indulgence devours the vulnerable. As the sway continues, the revelation settles quietly, propelling her toward the dining halls where the feasts await, the ladder ahead a measured ascent into greater excess. Six ascends to the maw's upper decks, the air shifting from the kitchen's steam to a polished quiet broken by distant murmurs. The vessel's sway carrying her into a Japanese-style dining hall lined with low tables and paper screens. Obese guests fill the space, their bloated forms gorging on piles of meat laid before them, the feast prepared from the wrapped bundles ascending from below, turning the children's remains into sustenance for endless appetites. As she navigates the edges, some guests stir from their trance, their hands reaching out to capture her small form, the intrusion sparking their gluttonous instincts to consume anything within grasp. This hall, overseen by the distant lady, enforces the Maw's cycle of indulgence, where arrivals by ship lead to unchecked feasting that sustains the vessel's grim economy. With careful steps around crawling figures too heavy to stand, Six evades the initial grabs, the room's opulence a veneer over decay, guiding her toward vents that promise escape amid the growing chaos. The pursuit intensifies as more guests scramble after her, their massive bodies piling over one another in a frantic wave, the clamor rising from her dashes across tables and under benches. This frenzy, triggered by her bright raincoat cutting through the dim hall, transforms the dining area into a hazardous gauntlet where immobility gives way to desperate lunges. Six climbs through narrow vents and leaps gaps, the guests' groans echoing as they claw at openings too small for their bulk, one even tumbling overboard in the chase's excess. The encounter reveals the guests' dependency on the Maw's offerings, their gluttony a direct outcome of the vessel's allure that draws them from afar, perpetuating a loop of arrival and devouring. As the hall recedes, the escape's toll settles, the vents cool metal a brief respite, carrying her upward where the ladies' quarters await in quiet anticipation. Hunger strikes again in a quiet alcove, Six's frame buckling as the void demands more, a helpful gnome approaching with a sausage extended in its small hands. She ignores the food, instead seizing and devouring the gnome itself, the act absorbing its essence in a moment of unyielding need, leaving no remnant of the creature's kindness. This choice, stemming from her escalating darkness since the Pale City, deepens the hunger's hold, turning potential alliance into fuel amid the Maw's isolating corridors. As strength returns, the incident lingers like a shadow, the gnome's fate a quiet echo of the vessel's consumption, propelling her toward the upper levels where mirrors and masks conceal deeper truths, the sway continuing softly, the ascent a measured path through the vessel's layers, the hunger a companion in the dim. Six ascends to the Maw's uppermost levels, the air growing cooler with faint incense lingering amid the vessel's gentle sway, the dim elegance of shadowed decor marking entry into the lady's private domain. Broken mirrors line the chambers, their shattered surfaces reflecting fractured glimpses that hint at her aversion to her own image, the cracks tied to her vanity's conflict with her hidden essence beneath a geisha mask. She navigates carefully, the lady's humming drifting from nearby, as Six slips through vents and under furniture, each step avoiding the porcelain shards that crunch softly underfoot. This space, filled with portraits and delicate furnishings, reveals the lady's obsession as a shield against her unseen truth, shaped by the Maw's corrupting hold over its overseer. As she presses deeper, the quarter's refinement contrasts the lower deck's grim utility, the mirror's damage a silent testament to inner conflict, driving her control over the vessel, the ascent building steadily, the hum of the Maw fading slightly, drawing her toward an inevitable confrontation in the shadowed elegance. Cornered in a lavish room, Six faces the lady directly, her magical aura emanating as a dark force that repels intruders, the assault triggered by Six's presence in the lady's private chambers. The lady advances with measured grace, her mask concealing the horror beneath as shadows twist around her form. But Six spots an unbroken mirror amid the debris, its surface intact and reflective. She hoists it upward, the glass exposing the lady's reflection, the sight weakening her stance and causing her to collapse in vulnerability. This tactic, born from observing the quarter's shattered remnants, exploits the lady's aversion to her own image, turning her strength into frailty amid the room's quiet disarray. As the lady lies defenseless, the encounter underscores the Maw's hierarchy, where power flows from hidden flaws. The mirrors roll a pivotal shift that halts her dominion, the space settling in hush. The vessels sway a subtle rhythm, the victory opening a path where absorbed essence awaits in the dim. Hunger overwhelms Six once more in the aftermath, her body seizing as the void demands sustenance, the pang intensified by the confrontation's drain on her small frame. With the lady prone and unguarded, Six approaches without pause, sinking her teeth into the exposed neck, the act absorbing the lady's powers in a steady draw that quells the ache. This consumption, a direct escalation from prior feasts, grants Six abilities tied to the lady's dark influence, the power manifesting as a subtle shift in her presence amid the quarter's fading light. The transfer, resulting from the lady's defeat, empowers her against the Maw's inhabitants, turning vulnerability into dominance in the vessel's cycle. As strength surges back, the incident marks a transformation. The ladies fall rippling through the decks below, propelling Six toward the exit with newfound command. The Maw's quiet persisting. The quarters empty now, the ascent concluding in subtle empowerment. Six, now infused with the lady's dark powers, descends through the Maw's dining halls, the vessels sway carrying a subtle rhythm as obese guests lunge from their seats, their bloated forms scrambling in a renewed frenzy triggered by her transformed presence. The absorption grants her a commanding aura that unsettles the guests, each collapsing as her influence overwhelms them, the act a direct extension of her hunger's evolution from mere sustenance to dominance. She walks steadily amid the chaos, the camera shifting to capture her transformed stride, the guests' pursuits ending in lifeless heaps that clear her path without resistance. This reversal, born from consuming the lady, disrupts the Maw's hierarchy, turning the vessel's gluttonous core into a graveyard of indulgence where excess leads to downfall. As the halls quiet, the gnomes gather at the edges, their small forms watching her passage, the quiet aftermath settling like a veil over the opulent decay, the Maw's upper decks receding, the empowerment a quiet force propelling her toward the exit's light. Ascending the final staircase, Six passes through a doorway into sunlight, the ocean air fresh against her raincoat as the Maw's entrance looms behind, the vessel's horn sounding faintly in the distance like a solemn farewell. The gnomes cluster below, their gazes following her departure, their presence a quiet echo of her fleeting encounters throughout the decks where moments of connection offered brief respite amid isolation. This emergence marks the end of her captivity, the sunlight piercing the vessel's shadows to reveal the open sea, where freedom carries the weight of absorbed powers and lingering voids. The Maw's cycle, sustained by the lady's oversight, fractures with her fall, leaving the gnomes to their hidden existence in the depths. As she stands atop the structure, the post-credit scene unfolds with the horn's distant call echoing the vessel's ongoing lure for new arrivals, the quiet expanse stretching outward, the journey's toll a subtle undercurrent, the sunlight a measured close to the Maw's embrace. In the depths below, parallel events stir as the Runaway Kid awakens elsewhere on the Maw, his path unfolding alongside Six's, the vessel's layers holding separate tales of evasion and transformation. The gnomes' quiet labors in the furnace continue, their small shadows flickering on walls, the work ensuring the Maw's engines hum without pause. This layered existence, where multiple children navigate the same shadows, underscores the vessel's vastness as a trap for the young, each story feeding into the larger cycle of consumption and change. As Six's silhouette fades against the light, the maw persists in motion, its secrets buried in the sway, carrying echoes of those left behind. The ocean's horizon broadening, the vessel's quiet persistence a backdrop to her departure. The sunlight holding promise amid unresolved hungers. Parallel to Six's path on the maw, the runaway kid stirs from a nightmare of sinking into dark waters, pulled under by an unseen force, the vision fading as he awakens in a dimly lit room with scattered beds amid the vessel's gentle sway. The air carries the same damp chill as the lower decks, the space a holding area for captives like him, its quiet disarray marking the start of his flight. This awakening, mirroring Six's own disorientation, propels him forward through corridors where the janitor's heavy footsteps echo, his pursuit of fleeing children drawing the kid into the fray. As he moves, a flashlight found among the shadows lights his way, its beam cutting through darkness that conceals leeches and hidden drops. The maw's structure, with its vents and chains, demanding careful navigation, each step avoiding the janitor's grasp that could end his flight abruptly. Amid the room's remnants, the kid's journey begins in earnest, the parallel timeline weaving unseen with Six's. The vessel's depths a shared labyrinth where young lives intersect in fleeting moments. Deeper in the flooded underlevels, the kid leaps across floating platforms, the water's surface rippling with the granny's submerged presence, her elongated form lunging from below to drag him under. This entity, dwelling in the maw's watery ruins, reacts to splashes and movements, her attacks a consequence of the vessel's neglect that allows such horrors to thrive in the depths. The kid evades her by balancing on debris and timing jumps, the pursuit intensifying as she surfaces with croaking breaths, her senses tuned to disturbances in the water. The flashlight's beam aids in spotting safe paths, its glow revealing floating planks and scattered wreckage that serve as stepping stones. This section of the maw, heavily inundated, tests endurance against the granny's persistent pulls, each narrow miss building tension in the dim submersion. As he presses on, the flooded halls recede slightly, the encounter's resolution opening drier routes upward, the vessel's sway a constant undercurrent, carrying him toward the janitor's domain once more. The kid climbs a tall wooden ladder from the depths, the ascent leaving him exposed as the janitor's long arms snatch him mid-reach, the capture stemming from a momentary lapse in stealth amid the maw's echoing vastness. Placed in a cage within the prison's gloom, his confinement aligns with Six's own timeline, their paths crossing briefly in the vessel's holding area for its young captives. This intersection, subtle and unobserved, tying their struggles in the dim, the cages a holding point for the maw's resources. As the kid is transported, the maw's mechanical hum persists, the event a quiet pivot toward his transformation, the parallel struggles underscoring the vessel's scale where multiple fates unfold in tandem, the prison's quiet fading behind, the journey's layers deepening, the sway guiding toward shadowed turns ahead. Wrapped and suspended on an ascending hook, the runaway kid feels the maw's mechanical lift carry him upward, the bundles around him swaying with the vessel's motion, their contents still and silent. The bindings loosen as he wriggles free, the escape a result of subtle shifts amid the janitor's transport, allowing the kid to drop onto a new level filled with coal dust and the hum of furnaces. Here, gnomes labor in quiet unison, shoveling fuel into the maw's engines, their small forms bent to the task that keeps the vessel operational through endless voyages. The kid joins them briefly, the cooperation opening a path that ascends further, the heat from below warming the air as shadows play on the walls. This alliance, born from shared vulnerability, reveals the gnome's role in sustaining the maw, where overlooked work powers the gluttony above. As the path rises, the furnace's glow fades, the experience a measured progression through the vessel's heart, carrying him toward revelations in the quiet grind. In the engine's upper reaches, the runaway kid observes gnomes clustered before a furnace, their forms casting long shadows on the walls. The lights play, hinting at their origins as beings bound to the maw's service. The sight, framed by the fire's steady glow, suggests a connection to the lady's influence that shapes captives into these skittish forms, their labor a hidden consequence of the vessel's cycle. He slips through a crack onward, the shadows lingering as a quiet truth amid the mechanical drone. The gnome's existence a thread tying the maw's depths to its overseer's power. This glimpse deepens the vessel's mysteries, the transformation's echo settling in the dim, propelling him toward the lady's quarters where fates intertwine further. The maw swaying onward, the engine's hum a constant backdrop, the journey's layers unfolding in subtle turns. The runaway kid, now transformed into a gnome by the lady's dark influence, wobbles through the maw's upper corridors, his small form altered by her power, the vessel's sway adding a gentle lilt to his unsteady steps. The change, a result of her inescapable grasp in the residence, strips him of his human shape, turning agility into a toddling gait amid the dim guest areas where platters of food lie scattered. He approaches a sausage on the floor, the item's allure drawing him closer in the quiet room. But the screen fades to black as implication settles, the gnome's end coming swiftly, devoured in a moment of hunger by another survivor. This fate, tied to the maw's cycle of transformation and consumption, leaves no trace beyond the quiet absence, the guest room's opulence a backdrop to the vessel's hidden cruelties. As shadows lengthen, the gnome's brief existence echoes the lady's power to warp the young, the maw's decks holding layers where kindness yields to necessity, the quiet aftermath lingering, the vessel's hum a constant, carrying the story toward its interconnected close. Revealed in retrospect, this gnome is the one Six encounters during her ascent, his offering of a sausage overlooked as she succumbs to hunger, consuming him to sate her growing need amid the maw's dim halls. The parallel timelines converge here, the kid's journey from awakening to transformation, culminating in this quiet sacrifice where his efforts to escape feed another's survival in the vessel's grim cycle. The guest area's remnants, discarded plates and distant murmurs frame the moment, the devouring a direct outcome of Six's hunger overriding the gnome's gesture of aid. This intersection underscores the maw's hypocrisy, where protagonists become unwitting parts of the cycle, the kid's fate a quiet mirror to Six's growing darkness. As the screen holds the implication, the maw sways onward, the event a subtle thread binding their paths in shared loss, the quiet resolution settling. The upper decks empty now, the vessel's layers unfolding in measured turns. A final television in the gnome's last space flickers to life, its screen showing the thin man's silhouette amid static, the image a subtle hint of broader connections beyond the maw's isolation, suggesting distant forces at play. This glimpse, emerging post-transformation, links the vessel's events to the Pale City's signals where entities like the Thin Man cast shadows across realms, their influence an ambiguous thread in the world's distortions. The television's hum aligns with the maw's own, the Thin Man's form a quiet omen of pursuits to come. The screens fade, leaving the vessel's secrets intact. As the maw continues its voyage, the connection lingers like an echo, the kid's story at peace in the larger tapestry where timelines intersect. The quiet screen dims, the vessels sway persistent, the journey's threads drawing toward unseen horizons. Across the nowhere's spiral, the interconnected fates of Mono, Six, and the Runaway Kid weave a tapestry of quiet inevitability, where awakenings in misty forests or underwater vessels lead inexorably to cycles of transformation and loss. The franchise's narrative, unfolding across the pale city's warped streets and the maw's swaying depths, reveals a world shaped by signals, mirrors, and insatiable voids, each child's journey a thread in the nowhere's unyielding web. From Mono's initial vision of a bending corridor to Six's dream of sunlight through glass, these glimpses foreshadow the distortions that bend flesh, mind, and fate. The nowhere's watchful eyes, etched in chalk, embedded in towers, or glowing in palms, ensuring no escape remains untainted. This wrapping, drawn from the quiet echoes of betrayal and absorbed power, settles the franchise in gentle suspension, where innocence warps into guardianship and alliances fracture under the weight of survival's quiet toll. The pale city's rain-soaked desolation, where Mono's alliance with Six crumbles in the signal tower's fleshy core, sets the foundation for the nowhere's loops. His transformation into the Thin Man a perpetual chase across time, broadcasting distortions that erode viewers into hollowed husks. This cycle, born from Six's hesitant drop, perhaps sensing his power's threat or mirroring her own survival instincts, ripples into her glitched hunger, a void that propels her to the maw's decks where feasts conceal the grim harvest of young lives. The Runaway Kid's parallel descent from flooded depths to gnome form intersects tragically as Six's meal, underscoring the franchise's hypocrisy, where protagonists become unwitting consumers in a world where kindness yields to necessity. The franchise's overarching themes of hunger and power weave through every realm, from Six's escalating feasts, devouring rat, gnome, and lady, to fill a void born from Mono's absorbed essence, the nowhere's distortions amplifying inner voids into predatory cycles. In the maw's depths, the Runaway Kid's transformation into a gnome feeds this pattern, his essence claimed unwittingly by Six, mirroring how the pale city's glitch remnants empower Mono, yet trap him in eternal broadcast. The signal's drain echoing where therapies extract souls for the nowhere's grasp. These hungers, whether literal or metaphorical, propel the young toward darker evolutions, the franchise's lore grounding them in a world where survival demands consumption, leaving scars that ripple across timelines like the maw's swaying decks or the tower's hazy portal. This quiet escalation from bread offered in cages to gnomes' labors in ruins underscores the nowhere's economy of loss, where power gained is isolation endured. Friendship and betrayal form the franchise's emotional core, Mono and Six's alliance fracturing in the tower's drop, her release a survival choice echoing her school vengeance, the Runaway Kid's brief gnome collaborations from coal shovels to furnace rides ending in his devouring, a quiet parallel to how Six overlooks offerings in hunger's grip, the maw's isolation amplifying trust's fragility amid overseers' pursuits. These dynamics, from hunter cabin levers to prison evasions, reveal the nowhere's erosion of connections where partnerships brighten paths, yet yield to self-preservation. The themes' lore accurate in their portrayal of companionship as fleeting light against encroaching voids. This quiet tension, woven through shared evasions and final betrayals, leaving alliances as echoes in the franchise's vast hush. The watchful eyes, symbols etched in pale chalkboards, embedded in tower flesh, or glowing in artificial beams, permeate the nowhere as omens of surveillance and control, linking the maw's artificial eyes that petrify to the signal tower's consuming gaze. The motif, a constant thread in the franchise's lore, where observation warps and claims, manifests in the tower as the structure's true form, consuming life force to fuel distortions that hollow viewers, mirroring how the lady's fractured mirrors conceal her grotesque truth, her power absorbed by Six to command shadows. The journey evades these eyes through careful navigation, yet the whispers of the maw's oversight persist. The gaze a metaphor for the nowhere's predatory vigilance that ensnares the young in cycles of oversight. This symbolism, grounded in the lore's interconnected distortions, settles the franchise's world as one under perpetual scrutiny, where eyes not only watch, but reshape. The quiet omnipresence of veil over every awakening and fall. The franchise's interconnected settings, the pale city's signal-warped skyline, and the maw's submerged vessel of gluttony, form a cohesive world where the nowhere's predatory essence consumes and reshapes. The transitions from forest mist to ocean depths, a quiet evolution of desolation across timelines. The television portal's echoing signal transits serve as fragile conduits between realms, their flaws, delays, or shatters, mirroring the signal's ejections that strand users in loops, the lore's consistency grounding these mechanics in the nowhere's refusal to release its grip. The maw's floating existence, adrift like the city's warped skyline, ties entertainment to entrapment, where the guest's puppets parallel the janitor's obsessions. Overseers whose distortions sustain cycles of performance and harvest for mindless indulgence. This unity, from signal-laced lures to ghostly transformations, settles the franchise as a dreamscape where realms bleed into one another. The quiet sway of seas and signals a constant rhythm in the nowhere's endless drift. As protagonists evolve from vulnerable awakenings to empowered yet burdened figures, the franchise's lore emphasizes transformation's cost. Mono's elongation into the thin man broadcasting eternal resentment. Six's hunger void propelling her feasts. Each change a quiet echo of the nowhere's corrupting signals. The Runaway Kid's gnome fate, absorbed unwittingly by Six, parallels the transformation's broader implications, both underscoring how the young become fuel or figments in Overseer's domains. The lady's masks concealing grotesques, much as the tower's eyes watch from flesh, tying vanity to vigilance in the world's watchful hierarchy. These arcs, woven through shared motifs of music boxes, soothing torment, or flashlights guiding escapes, reveal the nowhere's economy where power flows from the devoured to the devourer, leaving voids that hunger for more in measured perpetuation. The narrative's depth, grounded in these evolutions, rests the franchise in the quiet tension of growth amid decay, where sunlight promises but rarely delivers unscarred freedom. The nowhere's cycles, from Mono's time-bent pursuits to Six's mirror-bound transformations, affirm the franchise's theme of inescapable repetition, where betrayals, Six's drop, or the lady's fall stem from survival's edge, echoing across realms as quiet warnings that trust fractures under power's weight. In the maw's furnace-lit depths, Gnome's endless labors mirror the pale city's viewers draining into husks, both sustaining distortions that warp overseers like the janitor's arms or the teacher's neck. The lore's interconnected cruelties, a web where the young's ingenuity, flashlights piercing floods or mirrors exposing truths, offers fleeting resistance. These loops, amplified by unseen forces, or signal-bridging mechanics, settle the world as a predatory organism, absorbing essences to expand its fleshy illusions. The quiet persistence of eyes and signals ensuring no endpoint holds the drift. In this gentle close, the Little Nightmares franchise rests as a dream woven from quiet horrors, where Mono's forest jolt, Six's suitcase stir, and the kid's watery dread converge in a world of distorted fate, the nowhere's hush holding endless layers for those who awaken within. The sunlight in Six's exit, like the maw's fleeting deck glow or the tower's hazy portal, symbolizes fragile hope amid cycles that reclaim the empowered. The gnome's stillness, a final echo of bonds imagined yet lost. As eyes watch from chalk and flesh, the lore's depth invites reflection on hunger's void, power's corruption, and friendship's fracture. The timeline's a tapestry where each thread, pursued through schools, hospitals, prisons, and kitchens, reinforces the nowhere's unyielding pull. The echoes soften now, the world settling in measured peace, the franchise's quiet invitation lingering for those drawn back into its sway. The narrative's layers, from Mono's aging solitude to Six's empowered darkness, affirm survival's cost in a realm where innocence warps into monstrosity. Alliances dissolve under hunger's weight, and escapes carry the scars of power absorbed. The maw's horn sounds faintly in memory. The pale city's reign continues in whispered thought, and the nowhere's watchful eyes persist in gentle vigilance, carrying these tales forward as the franchise drifts softly into the quiet, where nightmares and dreams intertwine, leaving listeners to rest in the knowledge that in the nowhere, every awakening is but a prelude to another cycle, every escape a doorway to new shadows, and every choice a thread in the endless web of little nightmares.